right, so let's dive into a topic I know a lot of you have been wanting us to cover.
Yeah.
The challenges men are facing, in today's world.
Yeah, definitely.
And to help us kind of unpack all this, we've got this book here, The Iron Hand of Leadership.
Oh, this is a good one.
Yeah, and you guys have been sharing a lot about your own experiences with men's rights and how you're feeling about kind of the expectations society is putting on you guys these days.
Yeah, for sure.
And this book really dives headfirst into those complexities of masculinity.
Yeah, it does.
And from what I've been reading, it doesn't hold back.
No, it doesn't pull any punches.
No.
It's pretty bold in how it frames masculinity as like this crucial ingredient for a thriving society,
Yeah.
Despite all the negative press it seems to be getting these days.
Yeah, and it really seems to argue that men are kind of caught in this no-win situation.
Oh, totally.
You get criticized for being too alpha, quote-unquote masculine, but then you're also shamed for not being assertive enough.
Yeah.
Like you're never quite hitting the mark.
Exactly.
It's almost like a double bind.
It is a double bind.
You're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
It really is.
And, the author actually uses Jordan Peterson's work to highlight this.
Oh, yeah.
Saying that men are constantly being judged against these, conflicting standards.
Right.
It reminds me of that statistic from Pew Research Center, where it said that something like 1 in 4 American men feel isolated.
Oh, wow.
Like they have nobody to talk to about the important things in their lives.
I can see that.
And it just makes me wonder if this double bind that we're talking about, this pressure to be both, strong and sensitive,
Right.
if that contributes to that feeling of isolation.
That is a really interesting connection because the book, it does dive into how this double bind impacts men's mental health, their relationships, even their professional lives. It's not just about feeling confused, it's about feeling trapped and misunderstood.
Totally. And what I appreciate about this book is that it doesn't just complain about this double bind.
No.
It actually goes back and kind of traces the evolution of masculinity throughout history.
Yeah.
Like starting way back in pre-industrial societies, where physical strength was everything.
Makes sense, right? Back then, men were the hunters,
Right.
the protectors.
Exactly.
Their masculinity was directly tied to their ability to provide and defend their families and community.
But it was a matter of survival.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
had to be strong to survive.
Right.
But then things started to change.
Yeah.
The Industrial Revolution hit, and suddenly there's this shift
Yeah.
towards intellect and mental prowess. Like brains started to matter more than brawn in a lot of ways.
Right.
And the book suggests that this shift, while it opened up doors for both men and women,
Yes.
it also caused this disconnect from those traditional roles that had defined masculinity for so long.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And now, fast forward to the modern era, and things are even more complex.
Totally.
With gender roles constantly in flux.
It's like a whole new world.
It's no wonder that some men feel lost.
I get it.
Yeah.
It's tough to know where you fit in when everything's changing so fast.
Right. And the book, acknowledges that there are positives that come with, evolving gender roles.
Of course.
But it also doesn't shy away from, the potential fallout for men who are struggling to find their footing.
Yeah, for sure.
In this new landscape. And speaking of finding your footing, one of the things that you guys have been asking us about a lot is family dynamic.
Yes.
And this book really digs deep into the role of masculinity within the family.
Yeah, that's one of the things that really grabbed my attention too.
Yeah.
The book is very clear about the importance of strong father figures. It argues that men have this unique and essential contribution to make in parenting and child development. And it even cites this pretty shocking statistic. 35% of American households are fatherless.
Wow.
That's huge.
That's a huge number.
And the book really raises concerns about what that means for young boys growing up without positive male role models.
Yeah, 30. I mean, that's really eye-opening.
It is, isn't it?
And it makes me think about all the conversations that are happening right now about gender roles in family.
Yeah.
And this book actually takes a pretty controversial stance on that.
It does. It does.
It really does.
It argues that this push for absolute gender equality within the family, might actually be doing more harm than good.
Okay.
It uses the example of couples trying to split domestic responsibilities 50-50.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot.
Right,
Yeah.
And while that sounds fair in theory,
Right. On paper, it makes sense.
yeah, but the book suggests that it often ignores the inherent strength and inclinations of each gender and can actually lead to resentment and conflict.
Yeah, because you're trying to force something that may not be natural.
Exactly. It's not about saying men can't be nurturing or that women can't be providers, but it's about acknowledging that there might be these inherent differences that we should consider when defining roles within a family.
So it's more about recognizing each other's strengths
Exactly.
and working together.
Yes.
Rather than trying to force this, perfectly equal division of labor.
Exactly. It's about a healthy balance where both masculine and feminine energies contribute their unique strengths for the overall benefit of the family unit.
I like that.
It's about teamwork.
Teamwork.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, it's interesting because the book actually goes so far as to say that women are biologically better suited for child rearing,
Yeah.
while men are generally better equipped to provide financially.
Yeah. It makes a strong case for those traditional roles based on, biological differences.
Yeah, and that definitely goes against the grain of a lot of current thinking.
It does.
So the book is really pushing back against this idea that we can just completely erase gender roles without any consequence.
It's suggesting we need to be more thoughtful about it.
Yeah, and I'm curious to hear more about how it explores this idea of male leadership.
Yeah.
Because that seems to be central to its overall argument.
It's a big one,
Yeah.
for sure.
It is.
Yeah, it really is like woven throughout the entire book, this idea of male leadership.
Yeah.
It's pretty bold in stating that, societies really need men at the helm
Okay.
to guide things and encourage those strong family structures that we were just talking about.
Yeah.
It even uses these historical examples like the Japanese samurai, Native American warriors, the
Yeah.
Spartans.
Right.
These were societies that flourished. The book argues because they embraced male leadership.
So the book is linking societal success to strong male leadership.
Yeah.
That's a pretty strong argument to make, especially in today's climate.
It is. And it goes on to connect this back to the family, saying that a strong father figure is key to instilling discipline and order in the home,
Right.
which then ripples out into a more responsible, stable society.
Right.
It even backs this up with a statistic. Kids with involved dads are statistically less likely to get into trouble and more likely to do well in school.
That's compelling. I mean, if you look at the data,
Yeah.
but then makes another provocative point. It says that, current societal narratives are actually undermining male leadership,
Yeah.
leaving men feeling lost and unsure of their purpose.
It's like they don't know what their role is anymore.
Right. And it specifically calls out that Gillette ad campaign.
Oh, yeah.
The one that tried to redefine masculinity in a softer light.
Right, like trying to make men more, gentle and sensitive.
Yeah.
But the book argues that these attempts to soften or neutralize masculinity
Right.
can actually do more harm than good. It's suggesting that we need those positive aspects of male leadership, not a watered down version
Yeah.
for society to truly thrive.
So it's a call for like a reevaluation of how we see male leadership.
Exactly.
Not as something toxic or outdated,
Yeah.
but as a vital ingredient for a successful society.
Yeah, it's about recognizing and valuing what men bring to the table.
Yeah.
Not as a threat, but as a necessary complement to feminine strengths.
Okay.
It's about balance,
Balance.
not dominance.
Yeah.
And this ties directly into the psychological impact the book discusses.
Right.
This shame that men feel for simply being masculine.
Yeah, we touched on that earlier with the double bind,
Yeah.
but the book goes deeper, saying this constant pressure to be both strong and sensitive, assertive, and emotional.
Right.
It creates this feeling of emasculation and inadequacy.
Can be really damaging.
Yeah, and the book doesn't let the media off the hook either.
No, it doesn't.
It points to clickbait headlines and biased reporting that fuel this narrative of toxic masculinity.
Right, it's like men are constantly bombarded with these negative portrayals,
Yeah.
which makes it even harder for them to embrace their masculinity in a healthy way.
The book even critiques the Me Too movement, though it does acknowledge the importance of addressing sexual harassment and assault. But it argues that movements like this can create this atmosphere where men are guilty until proven innocent, almost like a witch hunt.
It's a sensitive area, for sure.
Yeah.
But the book's point seems to be that unintentionally or not,
Yeah.
these movements have contributed to the demonization of masculinity in a way that makes it difficult for men to even have a conversation about these issues.
Right. Like it's almost like you can't even talk about it
Exactly.
without being immediately shut down.
Yeah, it's a tough conversation to have.
So where does the book go from there? Does it offer any solutions to all of this?
It does. It calls for a more balanced approach where men can be strong leaders and protectors without being vilified.
Okay.
It stresses the importance of vulnerability and emotional intelligence,
Right.
but not at the expense of those core masculine traits.
So it's not about going back to some outdated, rigid definition of manhood,
Right.
but about integrating those traditional strengths with a modern understanding of what it means to be a man.
Precisely, it's about recognizing that men can be both protectors and nurturers, leaders, and team players.
Right.
It's about giving them the space to be authentically themselves without judgment or shame.
Yeah, and the book actually takes this beyond the individual level,
It does.
exploring how masculinity plays out in different areas of society,
Right.
like politics, religion, the economy, even education and technology.
Right, it's like a deep dive into all these different aspects of life.
Okay, let's break that down a bit.
Okay.
You mentioned politics earlier, and I know that's something a lot of our listeners are interested in.
Yeah.
What does the book have to say about masculinity in the political realm?
Well, it starts by claiming that the marginalization of masculine voices in politics
Yeah.
has created this leadership void. And it's not just pointing fingers at feminists or woke culture,
Right.
although it does touch on those things.
Yeah.
It talks about this broader cultural shift towards political correctness, where people are afraid to speak their mind,
Yeah.
especially if those opinions align with traditional masculine values.
So a fear of offending leading to a silencing of certain perspectives.
Exactly. And the book uses the term cultural emasculation
Wow.
to describe this.
Oh.
And it argues that this silencing has allowed a more radical feminist ideology to take hold in politics,
Right.
pushing policies that are detrimental to men, especially in areas like divorce, child custody, even domestic violence.
That's a strong claim. Is the book saying that the current political climate is actually hostile towards men?
It's definitely implying that.
Okay.
It suggests there's a system where men are often assumed guilty before proven innocent. And while the book acknowledges that there are well-intentioned people in politics,
Right.
it argues that the pendulum has swung too far in the other direction, creating an imbalance that's harming men.
So what's the solution? Does the book offer any ideas on how to address this?
It calls for a return to those core masculine values: honor, integrity, courage,
Yeah.
arguing that these are essential for effective leadership.
Okay.
It suggests that men need to reclaim their place in the political arena, not to dominate,
Right.
but to offer a different perspective, a different approach. It's about finding a balance, integrating traditional strengths with a modern understanding of gender roles and equality.
It's interesting that the book ties masculinity to these core values.
Yeah.
It seems like it's trying to reframe the conversation, to move away from this idea that masculinity is inherently toxic or problematic.
You're absolutely right. And this reframing continues into the book's discussion of religion.
Okay.
It starts by acknowledging the historical role religion has played in shaping masculine identity.
Right.
For centuries, religion has provided a framework for what it means to be a man.
Right.
Think about the roles of priests, pastors,
Yeah.
moms.
Those are roles that often embody those classic masculine virtues.
Exact.
Strength, leadership, authority.
Exact. But the book argues that this framework has eroded as religion has become more secularized and influenced by modern feminist ideologies. This, it suggests, has left men feeling spiritually adrift, unsure of their place in a world where those traditional religious values are often seen as outdated or even oppressive.
The book even points to the decline in church attendance among men as a symptom of this deeper crisis of masculinity. Is it suggesting that men are turning away from religion because they no longer see themselves reflected in it?
That seems to be the argument.
Okay.
It also delves into how the portrayal of God in many modern religious interpretations has become less masculine, more androgynous. And the book suggests that this shift away from a more patriarchal image of God contributes to that feeling of emasculation among men, making them feel less connected to their faith.
So is the book advocating for a return to a more rigid, traditional religious worldview?
Not necessarily. It's not about forcing everyone to conform to a specific set of beliefs,
Right.
but it's about recognizing that for many men, religion provides a sense of purpose and meaning, a framework for understanding their place in the world. And that's something that men are searching for in today's world.
It's about finding a way to integrate those traditional masculine virtues of strength, leadership, and service with a more inclusive and compassionate spiritual worldview.
Exactly. It's a complex task.
Yeah.
But the book believes it's essential for creating a future where men can find both spiritual fulfillment and a sense of belonging. Now, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about the economy, a realm where traditionally masculine traits have been highly valued.
Makes sense. I mean, I think about strength, decisiveness, risk-taking.
Yeah.
Those are qualities that are often associated with success in the business world.
Absolutely.
But I'm guessing the book has something to say about how that's changing.
You guessed right.
Okay.
The book argues that the decline in traditional male-dominated industries,
Like what?
manufacturing, construction,
Right.
has had a devastating impact on men.
Okay.
These were jobs that provided a sense of purpose, a way to support a family, a path to that American dream.
Yeah. Those were jobs that often required physical strength, resilience.
Yeah.
A willingness to work hard.
Exact qualities that are often associated with masculinity.
Yeah.
But with automation and globalization, those jobs have disappeared, leaving a void that's been tough for men to fill.
Yeah.
The book cites statistics showing how men have been disproportionately affected by job losses in recent decades.
Wow.
It also points to the growing gap in educational attainment between men and women,
Okay.
which further disadvantages men in the modern economy.
So it's like the rules of the game have changed, and many men are struggling to keep up.
That's a good way to put it. And this Economic marginalization, the book argues, has deeply impacted men's mental health and well-being.
It's not just about losing a paycheck.
No.
It's about losing a sense of identity,
Yeah.
purpose, self-esteem.
Exactly. It's like those traditional pathways to manhood have been disrupted,
Right.
leaving men feeling lost and unsure of how to navigate this new economic landscape.
And this economic shift also impacts family dynamics, according to the book.
It's a
With men struggling to be the primary breadwinner, those traditional gender roles within families are challenged, often leading to tension and resentment.
It's a complex issue, for sure.
Does the book offer any solutions for how to support men in this changing economy?
It calls for a reevaluation of how we support men.
Okay.
You know, it suggests creating new opportunities, helping them develop the skills they need to thrive in a rapidly changing job market.
Right.
It also urges us to address cultural biases that disadvantage men.
Okay.
Like the perception that they're less nurturing or less suited for caregiving roles.
It's about creating an economy that works for everyone,
Exactly.
valuing the contributions of both men and women.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about something you mentioned earlier, this concept of the male working mindset.
Oh, yeah.
What exactly does the book mean by that?
It's a fascinating point. The author suggests that throughout history, men have developed a particular mindset when it comes to work.
Okay.
It values hard work, dedication, and a willingness to take risks.
It's that classic image of a guy who rolls up his sleeves, isn't afraid of a challenge, puts in the long hours to get the job done.
Exactly. And the book argues that this mindset has been crucial for driving innovation and progress throughout history.
Okay.
But it's being eroded in the modern world,
Oh, so,
as men are discouraged from embracing those traditional masculine traits.
so are we losing that drive, that ambition, that willingness to push boundaries?
That's what the book seems to be suggesting. It says we need to reclaim this male working mindset to create a culture that values and rewards the traits that have traditionally made men successful in the workplace.
It's not about turning back the clock or ignoring the progress we've made in gender equality. It's about recognizing that men and women often approach work differently, and there's value in those differences.
Absolutely. It's about creating a workplace where everyone can thrive, bringing their unique strengths to the table and working together towards common goals.
Yeah.
Diversity of thought and approach is essential for success in today's world.
And this idea of diverse approaches is something the book carries into its discussion of education.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, let's talk about education. It's a topic that's always in the news, and I know it's something that you're passionate about.
I am.
What's the book's take on masculinity in education?
It's pretty straightforward in stating that masculinity is under attack in the education system.
Wow.
The book paints a bleak picture, suggesting that schools have become increasingly feminized, creating an environment hostile towards boys.
Okay.
It points to the statistics. Boys are falling behind. Girls academically more likely to be diagnosed with learning disability, more likely to drop out.
So it's not just that boys are lazy or unmotivated.
No.
The book's suggesting there are deeper cultural issues at play.
Yes, and it has a lot to say about how schools are structured and what types of learning are valued.
Okay.
It criticizes the emphasis on rote memorization and standardized testing, arguing that this type of learning tends to favor girls who may be more adept at these tasks.
It's interesting. I've heard this argument before, that boys often thrive in environments that are more hands-on, experiential, and competitive.
Exactly.
They like to build things, take things apart, figure out how things work. They like to test their limits and push boundaries.
They need that challenge.
Is that what the book is getting at?
That's exactly it. And it argues that these natural inclinations are being stifled in modern schools.
Boys are told to sit still, be quiet, follow the rules, conform.
Exactly. And it's not always easy for them.
And this, the book is saying, is having a negative impact on their self-esteem, motivation, and well-being.
Absolutely. It gives examples of boys being labeled as troublemakers for having a hard time sitting still or being diagnosed with ADHD because they're more energetic and impulsive.
Right.
It also highlights the lack of male role models in schools, further contributing to boys' feelings of alienation and disengagement.
So what does the book propose as a solution? A complete overhaul of the education system.
It does call for a pretty radical shift. It argues that we need a system that recognizes the unique needs and learning styles of boys.
Okay.
It calls for a return to those traditional masculine values of discipline, hard work, and competition, arguing that these values are essential for boys to succeed in school and in life.
But it's not about going back to some rigid old-fashioned model, right?
Right. It's about finding a way to integrate those traditional strengths with a more modern understanding of how kids learn.
Okay.
It's about creating a system that values diversity, not just in terms of gender, but also in terms of learning styles, interests, and abilities.
It's about giving boys the tools they need to succeed,
Yeah.
while also celebrating and embracing the qualities that make them unique. So
Exactly.
it's about finding that balance, just like in so many other areas we've discussed.
Exactly. Now let's move on to another area where masculinity is often portrayed in a negative light, the environment.
Okay, this is an interesting one.
It might seem counterintuitive at first, considering the association of masculinity with strength, power, and dominance, traits that are often blamed for environmental destruction.
It's true. We often picture men, at the helm of industries that are polluting our planet, cutting down forests, using up natural resources.
The book acknowledges this reality,
Okay.
but argues that this view of masculinity misses the bigger picture.
Okay.
It suggests that those same masculine traits that are often blamed for environmental destruction can also be harnessed to protect and preserve our planet.
So it's not about demonizing masculinity, but about redirecting it towards more positive goals.
Yes. Think about the qualities that are essential for environmental stewardship.
Like what?
Courage, resilience, a willingness to take risks, a sense of responsibility for future generations.
Yeah.
These are all traits that are traditionally associated with masculinity.
It's an interesting perspective. I mean,
Yeah.
those are the kind of qualities you need to face a challenge head on.
Right.
And what bigger challenge is there than climate change?
Right, and the book argues that men have a natural inclination to be protectors, to safeguard those they care about.
Yeah.
And what could be more important to protect than the planet itself?
So it's about tapping into that protective instinct,
Yeah.
that sense of responsibility that's often associated with masculinity, and channeling it towards environmental stewardship.
Exactly. The book gives examples of men who have been at the forefront of the environmental movement.
Like who?
Like Theodore Roosevelt, who established our national park system.
Oh, yeah.
Or Jacques Cousteau, who dedicated his life to exploring and protecting the oceans.
Those are great examples, men who embodied those classic masculine virtues of strength, courage, and leadership,
Yes.
and use those virtues to make a positive impact on the environment.
And the book argues that we need more men like that, men who are willing to step up and take responsibility for the future of our planet. It suggests that we need to reframe the conversation around masculinity and the environment,
Right.
moving away from this idea that men are the problem,
Right.
towards a more nuanced understanding of the role they can play in creating a sustainable future.
It's about recognizing that those same qualities that make men successful in other areas of life, their drive, their ambition, their willingness to take risks, can also be used to tackle the environmental challenges we face.
Precisely. It's about encouraging men to see themselves as protectors, not just of their families and community,
But of the planet as a whole.
but of the planet as a whole.
Yeah.
It's about creating a culture where masculinity is not seen as a threat to the environment, but as a vital force for positive change.
So it's another example of how the book is challenging these traditional, often negative perceptions of masculinity.
Right.
And trying to reframe them in a more positive and constructive light.
Exactly.
Speaking of reframing perceptions, I know the book also delves into social media
Yeah.
and its impact on masculinity.
It does, and it presents social media as kind of a double-edged sword for men.
Okay.
On one hand, it offers a platform for connection, sharing interests, building community.
Right.
Think about all those online groups dedicated to fitness gaming, even fatherhood. These can be incredibly valuable for men, offering a sense of belonging and support.
Yes, those online communities can be a real lifeline for men, especially those who might be feeling isolated or disconnected in their offline lives.
Exactly, but the book also points out that social media can be a breeding ground for toxic masculinity.
Oh, yeah.
It's a place where men are constantly bombarded with images of idealized male bodies, unrealistic expectations of success and wealth, and relentless pressure to conform to narrow definitions of what it means to be a man.
It's like that constant pressure to project a certain image, to live up to these unattainable standards of masculinity
Yeah.
that are constantly being reinforced online.
Right, and the book argues that this constant exposure can have a negative impact on men's self-esteem and body image.
Yeah, comparing yourself to those airbrushed perfect images.
Exactly. It can contribute to feelings of inadequacy and anxiety
Right.
as men compare themselves to these often unrealistic portrayals of masculinity.
It's like they're being told that who they are isn't good enough, that they need to strive for this idealized version of masculinity that's often unattainable and ultimately pretty shallow.
The book also explores how social media can perpetuate harmful stereotypes about men.
Oh, yeah.
Think about the way men are often portrayed in memes and viral videos
Right.
as bumbling idiots, aggressive jerks, or emotionally stunted robots.
It's easy to laugh at those portrayals,
Yeah.
but they can have a real impact on how men see themselves and how they're seen by others.
Exactly. And even though those portrayals are often meant to be humorous, they can reinforce negative stereotypes
Yeah?
and contribute to a culture where men feel pressure to conform to these limiting definitions of masculinity.
So it's another example of how the book is urging us to be more critical of the messages we're consuming.
Yes.
And to think about how those messages are shaping our perceptions of masculinity.
Right. The book argues that we need to be more mindful of the messages we're sending to men through social media. We need to challenge those harmful stereotypes and promote a more nuanced and positive view of masculinity.
Right.
It's about showcasing the diversity of male experiences, the different ways that men can express their masculinity in healthy and authentic ways.
It's about creating a social media landscape that's supportive, encouraging, and empowering for men, rather than one that's constantly tearing them down
Yeah.
and telling them they're not good enough.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Okay.
I know there's one final area the book explores that I wanted to touch on.
Yeah.
Sport.
Oh, yeah.
It's another realm where masculinity is often on full display.
Absolutely. The book argues that sports can be both a positive and negative force in shaping masculine identity.
Okay, how so?
Well, on the one hand, sports can teach boys valuable lessons about teamwork, discipline, perseverance, and leadership.
It's like those classic sports movies that celebrate the underdog, the team that comes together against all odds, the individual who pushes himself to the limit to achieve greatness. Those stories can be incredibly inspiring, teaching boys the importance of hard work, dedication, and striving for excellence.
Exactly. But the book also acknowledges the darker side of sports.
Okay.
It explores how the intense pressure to win the focus on physical dominance and the culture of silence around injuries can contribute to a toxic masculinity that can be harmful to both boys and men.
It's like those stories we hear about athletes who are pushed too hard, who are encouraged to play through pain, who are shamed for showing any sign of weakness or vulnerability.
Yes, and the book argues that we need to find a way to reform sports culture to create an environment that is both challenging and supportive,
Okay.
where boys and men can develop their physical and mental strength without sacrificing their well-being.
So it's about finding that balance again,
You know.
between competition and camaraderie, between pushing limits and respecting boundaries.
Right. It's about creating a sports culture that celebrates not just winning, but also sportsmanship, integrity, and respect for oneself and others.
It sounds like this book really covers a lot of ground.
It does.
And it comes to the societal implications of masculinity.
It's pretty comprehensive.
It tackles some tough topics head on, challenging conventional wisdom, and offering a thought-provoking perspective on the role men play in the modern world.
It does. And I think it does a good job of raising some important questions about how we view masculinity and the challenges men face today.
Yeah.
It's a book that will likely spark debate and controversy.
For sure.
But it's also a book that I think is essential reading for anyone who wants to understand the complexities of masculinity in the 21st century.
Yeah, it really feels like we're at this kind of turning
I
point
think so.
in how we view masculinity.
Yeah.
You know, the old rules don't seem to apply anymore.
Right.
And there's just so much confusion about what it even means
Yeah.
to be a man today.
Total.
So where do we go from here?
Right.
What does the future hold for masculinity?
Well, it's definitely a time of transition. But the book doesn't end on a note of doom and gloom.
Okay, that's good.
It actually offers a sense of hope,
Okay.
arguing that the challenges men face today aren't insurmountable.
Okay, so there's a path forward.
There is a path
What
forward.
does that path look like?
Well, the book suggests that the first step is for men to reclaim their masculinity,
Okay.
to embrace those traditional virtues of strength, courage, and leadership, but in a balanced and healthy way.
So it's not about going back to some outdated macho stereotype.
Not at all. It's about integrating those traditional strengths with a more modern understanding of gender roles and equality,
Okay.
recognizing that men can be both strong and sensitive, assertive and compassionate.
It's about embracing the full spectrum of masculine.
Exactly.
Not just the narrow, rigid definitions we often see
Yeah.
in the media or society at large.
And the book also stresses the importance of mentorship,
Okay.
of older men guiding and supporting younger men as they navigate the challenges of manhood. It argues that we need to create more spaces where men can come together, share their experiences, learn from each other, and build a sense of community.
Sense of community seems so crucial,
It is.
especially when so many men are struggling with these issues on their own.
Absolutely. And beyond just finding support, the book challenges men to step up and take responsibility, not just for themselves, but for their families, their communities, and the world around them.
So it's about channeling those masculine traits, strength, leadership, courage,
Yes.
towards something bigger than oneself.
The book argues that men have a unique role to play in tackling the big challenges facing society, from climate change to poverty to social injustice. Wow. It calls for men to use their strengths to make a difference.
It's a call to action, a challenge for men to rise to the occasion and create a better future, not just for themselves, but for generations to come.
That's a great way to put it. It's a call to step up to lead, to serve, to protect. And it's a reminder that masculinity, when channeled correctly, can be an incredibly powerful force for good.
So the iron hand of leadership ends on a note of hope then. But it's not a naive hope.
It's a hope grounded in a realistic understanding of the challenges men face, but it's also fueled by a belief in men's potential to create a better future.
It's a book I think every man should read, no matter where they are on their own journey.
I agree. It's thought-provoking, challenging, and ultimately, I think, inspiring. It encourages men to embrace their masculinity in a way that is both authentic and empowering.
Well said. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the iron hand of leadership. For those of you who want to explore these ideas further, you can find the book on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books.
Definitely check it out.
And as always, keep diving deep.